Well, what's going on, my friends? Bruce Lund, founder of the Solopreneur Movement podcast. Every single week, we come into your life to bring you some kind of relevant content for you as a quote-unquote solopreneur. A solopreneur is solely in charge of their business growth. That typically involves sales, service, operations, marketing, and of course, 99% of this is mindset. And today we have a very special Spend Time with Talent edition for mortgage and real estate professionals. My good friend, I say my good friend, I just met you, but I feel like you're a good friend, Jen Plessis. Exactly. And so thank you so much to Jen. I know you do a ton of podcasts, and you have like the longest running podcast for mortgage professionals out there. So thank you so much for joining our Solopreneur Movement podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and so excited to share as much as I possibly can in the time we have together.
Perfect. And we try to keep it right around 30 minutes. Sometimes we go over, but we know how that goes. So,
yeah.
Well, I like to start out the podcast and honestly just give you about 3 to 5 minutes and humble brag on yourself about, like the past successes that you've had, how you help clients get the results that they want, really anything that you want to talk about for 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I probably won't take that much time. I just, what I like to just say is that, I'm America's mortgage mentor, right? I've kind of coined that phrase years ago, and really feel that whether I'm helping a client, and I'm talking about when I was in lending, when I'm helping a client, a borrower, or whether I was helping a realtor, whether I'm helping a client as a coach now, I feel like I've always been a mentor, and that was really where the basis of my practice really started. And so in 2018, halfway through 2018, I retired after a 35-year career in the business. I was in the top 1% a little over 18 years, and in the top 200, I think 5 or 6 times. So the top 0.003% of loan officers in the country. And what ended up happening is, I started really just saying, how can I give back to other people so that I can compress the timeline that you could achieve success instead of waiting for 35 years to get it, right? And so now I'm just helping people realize that too. And both of us are coaches. And so it's just a matter of, personality types and styles and things like that. And, and we were just talking offline is that it's not a competition, it's a collaboration. Whatever we can do to help people grow their practices, we're here to do.
That's exactly right. And, I had the pleasure of introducing you at our mutual friend, Christine Beckwith's 2020 Vision Summit in Tampa. And I was the MC. So I was giving all of these super long bios on folks. And I remember not just yours, like everybody's,
Yeah.
Someone actually wanted me to read the whole thing. I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be brutal. But I just remember seeing yours is just it was like national TV shows and this and that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this person has got it going on. So obviously if people want to go find your bio, they can go find it. But I thought you did a great job of kind of giving us the Cliff Notes version, the top 0.001% of originators out there for 18 years, right?
Well, not 18 years, but for the 4 or 5 or 6 that I was in the top 200. Yeah.
Yeah. The
top
point
1% is still not bad. Yeah.
The point is, you know what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, perfect. So, this podcast is obviously intended to be for anyone out there that is in really any commoditized industry, real estate, mortgage, title, insurance, financial, any commoditized industry. However, I try to gear it towards those younger, newer folks that are out there that are still trying to figure out how to do a lot of this stuff, because, there's all kinds of staggering stats about, 50% of people that get started in sales don't make it to year number 2. I've seen stats as high as 80% don't make it to year 5. So what we're trying to do is obviously empower people to get to those places in their careers and in their lives, right? And so I know you have plenty of systems to help them with that. And I do, I'm one of those coaches where a lot of people have these podcasts and it's filled with platitudes like go network and go get your name out there. And you're like, well, no crap, right? Thanks for that advice. So today I want to just have you kind of break down whether it's the different pillars, because you coach people, you've been coaching people for years. So you could talk to the different missing structures that you consistently see with people, maybe some systems that you help your own clients kind of break through. I know the limiting beliefs is a big part for what you're doing. I know you have a new book coming out about that as well. So there's a lot of different directions we could take it. but let's start out and just
I know,
talk.
and I'm thinking, how do we do this in 30 minutes? Let's try it.
I
Yeah.
know that's always my problem. So let's talk to just the basics of business for those that are
Yeah.
maybe newer, their first year or two. What are some of the biggest things that you see that people struggle with early on?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to give you some quotes, if that's okay.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect.
Not facts, quotes. Okay. So the first one is slow down to speed up instead of speeding up to slow down.
I
So
like that.
let's dissect that a little bit, right? We in our industry run around like chickens with our head cut off, title, insurance, real estate agents, it doesn't matter. We run around like chickens with a head cut off, and we don't get any traction because we're just chasing all these distractions, all these shiny objects. Should I get coaching? Should I pay for this, app? Does it look, it's cool. And I also need to have this card and this little doodad, promotional item, right? And so we're just chasing all this stuff, and it's just slow down, analyze, step back, then you can speed up. Get your act together first, right? And what we do is when we're speeding up, we tend to slow down. And a good statistic on this, Zillow just came out with this statistic that the average loan officer spends 8 seconds developing a relationship with the client on the phone. 8 seconds. And then we wonder why they're shopping us halfway through the loan application, right? Through the whole loan process. So if we slow down, we can speed up through the process because we're creating that loyalty, right? And really creating that strong relationship with the client. And so that's just one example, right? The other example in slow down to speed up instead of speeding up to slow down is I have to meet with realtors. I have to, because someone told me go do it. I have to meet with realtors, right? And the problem is we're not present. We just have our own agenda, and we haven't learned, and no one's taught us how to have really good interviews with realtors. And what we fail to remember when we walk in those meetings, because I've been there, right? Where I walk in the meeting and go, oh, I hope they like me. I really, really hope they like me. I hope they do. And so we throw up on them with all our products knowledge. We can close on time and it'll be smooth and all that stuff, which is all out the window now because it's not about customer service. It's about a customer experience. It's about how they feel having worked with you so that they will be compelled to tell all of their friends and create this revolving door of referrals, right? Coming back and forth. So we're not present with them because we have our own agenda. But what really we have to do is slow down before we walk in and say, you know what? There's 3 outcomes. Yes, I hope that they like me. I hope that they don't say no, right? So it's either they're going to work with me, they're not going to work with me. But the third element is I have the right to choose whether I work with them.
Perfect.
And
Yep.
we fail to see that and recognize that. And if we just step back a little bit, there's going to be people that you're going to say no to, and that's okay. Because having everybody means you're selling to nobody. You want to just have the handful that you need, right? So being present is huge with people now. And part of it's, lack of priority management, now knowing how to manage your priorities. And so we're so busy. We're like, let me go grab that realtor. And then when I'm done grabbing the realtor, I'll just be done grabbing a client for 8 seconds on the phone. And then I'll be done grabbing an application. And then I'll, and it's just chaos. And notice that my speaking speed is going on purpose. I want to get the angst in people because this is what we're like. So if we just slow it down.
Yeah.
So the great Les Brown, and I speak with Les Brown, I'm on his speaking team. He says, if we do what is easy, our life is going to be hard. But if we do what's hard, our life will be easy. So what does that mean? It means this is work. This business is work. Doesn't mean you have to work forever. But if you do everything right the first time, you won't have to spend time fixing it. Mm-hmm. If you do the interview properly the first time, you won't have to spend time babysitting that relationship, right? Yep. So really honing in and saying, what's important to me? What is my personality like? What are my values? Who do I want to be and represent out there? And then go attract people instead of going chaotic. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Be the buyer versus the seller in your interactions. You don't have to you have to do business with everyone. And I know we were talking off air about the DISC profile. Most people in sales are high I's, right? When you just study statistically, well, high I's want to be liked.
Liked
a lot
by
of times,
everybody.
That's right. And like, you can't be, One of my favorite quotes is, if you try to make everybody happy, you're guaranteed to not be happy yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And we see that happen a lot in sales and in business on the front end of those conversations. So having that clear filter. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that comes down to, anytime you're doing sales too, is that you're not going to be turned down if you can make sure that when you're talking to somebody, you're anticipating what their objections are and you're anticipating what their needs are. And, and I think that we get burnout because we don't do that. We just think, okay, well, next realtor, and hopefully they're going to love me. Right. But we've already learned through all of our conversations with them what their anticipated objections are. So let's already address them. Let's say, you already have a lender. I know that. I don't want to take it from that relationship. What can we do differently to grow your business?
And John, on the front end, then, because it's one of those things that easier said than done for those younger, newer originators is, how do they figure out on the front end, like who's fitting their filter? Do they have to do some self-assessment stuff on the front end? Because, I just remember early on when I launched my business 3 years ago, I felt like it was like anybody with a pulse and a pocketbook, I'm going to take them on. And it doesn't really matter if they fit my filter. Now, obviously experience tells us like we want them to fit our filter. Otherwise, it's truly going to be exhausting, and I talk about spend 80% of your time with a 20% who deserve it. But early on, a lot of times we don't know what that is. So how, what's your advice for people early on to figure what that is? Is it just through experience?
Well, I mean, definitely experience happens because it's about, scarcity versus abundance. When you're young, young in the business, it doesn't matter if you're young in the business. If you're young in the business, you have scarcity, right? And that vulnerability. And to a certain extent, those that have been in the business for a while now have sort of recircled back into a scarcity mode versus abundance and not made changes, to come along with the time. And so I think I just lost my train of thought is what I'm saying. I think I can't remember what I was going to say about that too. I wanted to say something really good about that. So maybe you can ask the question again and I'll answer it.
Well, we can come back to it.
Okay, good. I know it's something good.
It'll pop in your mind. I know how this goes. We'll be talking about something here in 2 minutes. It'll pop up.
Yeah, and I'll go, oh, by the way. Yeah.
Yep. So, talking about, again, whether it's younger people or young in the business people, whether it's somebody 3 to 5 years in, like 9 to 10 years, like, are there just common challenges that people have? I mean, do you think that it's like once you get to this point in your career, like you're not going to have these challenges anymore? Like, what are the universal struggles that you see, everyone have?
Yeah. And I remembered the other thing I wrote down, don't worry. But, for me, what I see with my clients and the people that I'm talking to is the business is running them. They're not running the business. And if there's one thing that we could teach people is, with experiences, how to get this business to, you to be in control of it. And so the whole premise of all my coaching is about a life of values that adds value everywhere in your life. So if you can break it down to your core values, so for example, if your core value is family, then why are you working till 11 o'clock at night? That means that you're not setting up the boundaries, right, for those core values. And that seems to be the biggest problem for people, is that we're just, again, running amok, right? We don't have time for anything. You and I were talking about health as well. We don't have time to work out. We don't have time for relationships. That's why we move so fast through the realtor relationships and just hope some of them stick. But I don't have patience for that anymore. I'd rather just have that conversation and make a decision about them and move on, instead of being in the hope and wait that someday someone will remember me because I went to a meeting and I threw up on them, and never met with them again. Right. So if there's a way that, and I know there is a way, but it's priority management. It is priority management. What's the priority? What can be delegated? What doesn't even have to be done? You don't have to do everything. Just because Joe Blow's doing everything doesn't mean you should be. And maybe he's not happy doing everything. Maybe it's a facade, right? And so it's really getting to the point, for me, determining what is it that you want in a lifestyle. And I'm not talking about Maseratis and trips and stuff. I'm talking about day-to-day lifestyle. Do you want to be with your family? Do you want to be with your spouse? Do you want to play more golf? Do you want to watch ants crawl on the ground? Let's get you more of that, right? Let's build your lifestyle and then build your business around it. And what we tend to do is build businesses and then try to squeeze in our life. And there's no sustainability in that. And I learned this 20 years ago. And that's why I was able to quadruple my volume, right? Quadruple it, working less hours.
Are you talking to me right now? I feel like we're having a conversation and you're talking directly to me. So we'll keep going. Don't let me stop you. I'm taking notes.
No, but that's really it. And so the another way I like to explain is, when you're about ready to go on vacation, you get really intentional, very focused. You get so much business in and you're thinking, how am I going to go on vacation? I've got all this business all of a sudden, right? Maybe I should go on vacation more often. And we've all said this, right? What if you worked every single day just like that? You worked intentionally, laser focused for the period of time you choose to work, and then you go on vacation every day. So for me, I'm a competitive ballroom, Latin, and swing dancer. Every day I'm dancing anywhere from 2 to 4 hours, right? That's my priority. That and shooting. I'm also a markswoman. I'm on a shooting team. So I like to practice shooting, right? And then I like to dance, right? Those are the two things that I like to do.
Picture you like dancing with a gun and like just twirling around and
sort of like
that might be a bad mix.
Like Batman. Right? Never done that. No, never done that.
For anybody listening to this podcast, just know that Jen is actually dressed up right now with a gun in her hand, so you're missing out on that.
Yeah, so you should come watch it right now. So I love shooting and I love dancing, right? And those are my priorities every day. Those are my priorities. Those are the things that fulfill me, the values that I have, among other things. But those are huge things. So that means when I work, I have to be really intentional because I've got to get to business, right? I've got to get down to this business of dancing because this fulfills me. And so what happens is we run around doing all these activities every day, and it's like eating soup with a fork, right? We come home and we're like, I was busy, but I'm exhausted. I am not full. I'm not fulfilled, right? And so let's just slow down. Let's figure out, what do you want in your life? And then let's build a business around it. And if it means coming home every day at 3 to be with your kids, then that's what we'll do. If it means 3 days a week, then that's what we'll do.
Yep.
If it means a 13-week plan and 4 weeks off, that's what we'll do.
Yep. I love it. And again, this is for you younger, I keep saying younger, but for you solopreneurs, you new in the business folks out there, early, the first year or two, like you're saying, like there's things that you're going to have to do early on. Like you're just going to have to work hard early on, but it's not to say that you can't start building your structure of your business around the things that you want, you can forecast out. Right. Because I do know that's a challenge for people early on, right?
It is. Well, especially self-employed, we kind of take away the lender and realtor and title, but when we're talking about just regular entrepreneurs, someone planted that seed at your office that said, you're a great widget maker. You should have your own widget making company. And you're going, it's beautiful, the dream of being a self-employed person, except that you forgot that you have to do all aspects of being self-employed. And it actually turns out to be a nightmare instead of this beautiful dream. And again, if you can go back to, why am I doing it? What makes me happy? And so that then transcends, of course, into mortgage lending, real estate and all the others, is that, why are you doing this? Because it's not just for money. I can tell you, you can make a ton of money. My biggest month was $218,000 one month. And I was miserable. Yes, you want to make money, no doubt, but that's not why you're doing it. There's another reason. You're making the money so that you can do what? Buy more investment properties so that you can have an exit strategy at some point, take your family on a big cruise. Those are the things that you need to be thinking about, is what's going to make you happy. It can't be just doing this all the time, day in, day out, day in, day out.
Perfect. I love it. And I mean, obviously a lot of us would take a $218,000 month to be miserable one month, but your point
I took it. I didn't.
But your point is that's not sustainable though either.
It's not.
Yep.
Yeah. And so whatever that level is for you, if it's $5,000 a month, if it's $20,000 a month, it doesn't matter. It's that, what are you having to do to create that money?
That's right.
Right. And if you're having to sell your soul to the mortgage devil, it's not worth it.
Yep. And the other part of that too is, the point of any business is to create a customer and drive revenue so that you can free yourself up in other areas, whether that's scaling to grow a team, whether that's
Right.
outsourcing the things that you don't enjoy doing. So that's a whole nother business plan exercise that people should know. And I don't know about you, but I found that a lot of people, when they set their business plan or I call it a dominant focus, their goals,
Yeah.
it's always just obscure. It's always just some random, like, I want to go make
500 grand.
$100,000. Yeah. Like whatever it is. It's like,
Yeah.
there's really
Yeah.
no, there's really no reason behind it. They don't sit down with
Yeah.
an expert and actually carve out their P&Ls or what they can do with that money and stuff like that. So, what are things that you help people do from that standpoint? Whether it's
Yeah.
like you said, the why or just figuring out that
Yeah,
number.
well, and yeah, so there's, in the lifestyle, I call it lifestyle business mastery. And in that there's 5 C's. It's clarity, right? Clarity. And I can go into details, but clarity, community, communication, credibility, and coaching, right? It's those 5 things that when I was asked by my coach who said, how are you so successful for so long? I mean, over $1 billion in volume, right? How are you so successful over that period of time? And I said, well, I wrote thank you notes because someone told me to write thank you notes. No, that's not why. Well, I followed up. No, that's not why. And she really helped me hone in and figure out what it was that I did. And so these 5 C's I've actually been teaching for many, many years to realtors because that was my path to getting to a realtor's heart was education, right?
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, I'm going to pay for something and I'm going to educate you instead. And so I've been teaching these for quite some time. And, when I sat down and thought about it, I said, oh yeah, it is credible. I mean, it is clarity of message, right? I niched to grow rich. I didn't sell everything to anybody and make no money. I decided, I really have to hone in and shine a light on what my specialty is. And the thing about marketing like that, people think it's a scarcity mode, right? And I actually went through it when I became a coach full time because I said, is there enough out there for a mortgage coach? Is it too saturated? Because I've been in the business for so long. I've been speaking in the business for so long. And are people sick of me? That kind of thing. And said, oh, I can help everybody. And I can. But my market focus is loan officers and realtors. It's not everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now there's clarity of message, but the message also has to align with your personality.
Yep.
And so I had this guy one time, it wasn't too long ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, on Facebook. He made some comment. And I was, let me go see who this is. And turns out he's a loan officer. And he had cut and pasted this yellow ribbon that I had made before you could do it yourself on the computer. Right? I paid for it, like $500 to have this stupid little graphic made. And this graphic said experience matters. And that was sort of my tagline for years and years, experience matters. And he had taken that and cut and pasted it and put it on his Facebook page, and not on his page, but on his profile. And, we see that a lot in the business. I don't have a problem with that. The only problem I had is that he'd been in the business for 6 months. And I thought, yeah, experience does matter and you don't have it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it didn't align with him. So just because someone has a great idea, don't take it. It's got to align with you so that clarity of message, people have no confusion about what you do. Yep. And so mine were VA and jumbo and VA jumbo, right? And investors, because I've been very fortunate. I've done a lot of senators and congressmen from the Pentagon. I've done a lot of those loans. So I've done a lot of those types of loans. But that doesn't mean I didn't do 80-10-10s. That didn't mean I didn't do first-time home buyers. But that's where I focused.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so that message is probably the biggest thing is, who are you? Why should I, God forbid, today you get asked, why should I work with you over somebody else? And you don't have the answer.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Clarity of who you are, your message, what you specialize in. That for me was the number one thing. Number 2, the community. Are you neglecting or nurturing everybody you talk to? Your past clients, your prospects, your realtor relationships, your other relationships. Are you nurturing? And are you working with people that complement and not complicate you? Because let them go. My practice was based on 22 people. Did I have 3,000 in my database? Yes. 22 people is who I focused on. I nurtured, loved on my community. I had systems I had the PLP before the PLP was a PLP. I had it for years and years because I was an engineer. I wanted systems right away. And so I put that together years ago before we even had computers. And The system helps you be scalable. So it's the same repetition. It's not
Yep.
sexy, but it'll make you a ton of money. And then credibility. What are you doing to learn? You're listening to this podcast, right? Think about how many people aren't listening to the podcast. So you're doing that. Get designations, go to conferences, get a coach, right? All of these things to increase your credibility and your expert.
Yep.
You have to be an expert. No one wants to work with an intern. They want to work with a PhD. And the coaching aspect of it is the accountability, getting you to the point where we can prioritize your day so that you can accomplish everything you want to accomplish. It's possible. The last 8 years of my business, I only worked 4 days a week. And I own 4 businesses, and they're all very successful. But it means that I get in, I get my work done, and I move on. I'm not flipping around and trying to figure out who I should be and want to be, and maybe I should this and maybe I should that. I'm slowing down so I can speed up.
Yeah. Back to the original point. I love it. And Jen, you said a lot of different things. I'm taking notes over here as we're going through, but just talking about, it has to be your why. It can't be your significant other's why for you. It can't be your boss's why for your manager. It really does have to be your own. And I have found, and I've been guilty of this. I wrote a book at 24, 25 called Nexpert. You're the next expert. And I was studying the millennial generation, and they were saying all these negative things about us as millennials. We're lazy, we're entitled, we're this, we're that. And I'm like, man, those are all bad things. And, I was doing a lot of unique ability exercises at that time. Is like, what makes me different? What makes me unique as a 24, 25-year-old? And, it's natural for us to compare up. We never really compare down, right? We never compare down to somebody like 5 years younger than us. We always compare up. Well, comparison, it really can be an emotional cancer, because when you compare up, it's like, well, this person, like you said, experience, they might have 5, 10, 15 more years experience over you. And so that's not really a fun game either, because a lot of us have mentors because we do seek that out. Everybody needs a coach in life. But if you're comparing yourself to your mentor, that's not a game that you can win. Would you agree?
No. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very defeating.
Yeah.
And it really affects your limiting beliefs. I think that, you would never want to compare yourself to a mentor. You would want to lean on a mentor for advice. But as a mentor, I would tell you this, or as someone seasoned in the business, when you go up the ladder of success or go through the elevator and you've reached the top of the ivory tower, it would be crazy for you not to go back down and grab someone with new blood and new ideas, right? And I have a client that I'm coaching right now, and she's a millennial, right? Which I can't even stand using those words. I don't usually do that. I just say she's brand new in the business. And her limiting belief is constantly, well, I just don't have experience. I don't have, I don't. I said, but what you have is the ability to be on Facebook. I'm good, thank God. But because I'm one of those first to market people, right? But there's so many people in our industry that aren't on Facebook. For God's sake, my husband, who was on my team for 17 years and it took over my team, doesn't have Facebook, doesn't have LinkedIn, and he's a loan officer. Doesn't even have an account. It's crazy. For me,
that is crazy. Yeah.
He won't listen to me, right? Maybe he'll listen to you, but he, and so you have all these wonderful techniques that you could share with people. You have a new mindset, that's coming in where they're maybe dragging along some things. And the same token, someone who has more experience, I can go against that, person who doesn't have the experience, but only if you've moved yourself ahead during these transitional times. Because if you haven't done that, you have to. So there's nothing wrong with going down. And I love it. I used to go downstairs, right, in my mind, downstairs to the first floor and grab some new talent and bring the new talent on for some freshness and for new ideas and new ways of doing things. And I'm not a believer in that for millennials. My kids are 31 and 33. They're the higher end of the millennials. But my daughter is extremely successful at MGIC as an account executive. And my son is in the process of selling his business for $86 million right now. I would not say that they feel entitled. I would not say that they're lazy.
Yep.
We really embedded strong work ethic. And so if anybody has that work ethic, it's just putting it to the grind and making it happen.
It's the basics of life and business in general, but it says a lot about you as parents that you help with still that and ingrain that into them as well.
Yeah.
So obviously you should be commended for that as well. So congrats
Well,
on
they
that.
both were in the mortgage business for a while. That's what they did during
Okay.
college. Like, come on, you're in the mortgage business for during summer. And they learned, they learned my son has lots of property. My daughter's now accumulating
Yep.
property too, and we have it. And, they learned those things. And, so I would just say is like, I know you want to make money fast, and, somebody told you can make a ton of money, and let's just slow down and let's do it right the first time.
Yep.
Create a great foundation, right? A great foundation. The accessories will come later. Let's
Yep.
create that real strong foundation so it doesn't crumble under you.
Well, even you going through the 5 C's, I mean, that's foundational knowledge and awareness for somebody to go to. So we'll be sure to obviously put your website in the show notes so they can go check out things like that. I do want to kind of touch on, so you had mentioned with your husband with social media and technology, and, like, I think this is a struggle for a lot of people is, I've been doing it this way for so long and it works. So do I really need to go this other way? And again, I can't say whether or not the answer is yes or no, because in some areas you shouldn't. There's a lot of this new shiny new toy stuff that you've seen for, you've been around for 18 years. So you've seen all these things come and go. And I know it sounds like you're an early adopter, so you like to kind of test things out a little bit. And sometimes just like, oh my gosh, that was such a waste of time. My kind of analogy though would be, for social media and even having a CRM is, kind of like a smartphone. Let's say if you like trivia, if you enjoy trivia, you go to the bar, you're playing trivia. Well, your team has a flip phone. Everybody else has a smartphone. Could you win? Yes. Who's most likely to win though? The other folks with the smartphone technology. So that's kind of how I see social media in these gadgets. But, one of the things that when I do these interviews, one of the most common things that I hear from people really is, I wish I would have started really leveraging or keeping track of my database better. Would you agree with that as far as like a CRM and actively managing it and stuff like that?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't an issue for me because it just was something I did. I never had to be told to do that. And I think that's from my mom. And that's why I said notes, because my mom actually had me writing notes to, and I still do when I travel, I write a little note to the person who takes care of my room. And, I've always been sort of a nurturer of community. And so why would I work so hard to get a client and then just let them break up with me at closing? I can't understand that concept. But I would say the sooner that you start doing that and the sooner you start tracking, I mean, tracking's huge. And again, it's a non-sexy thing, but I can tell you that every top producer does it, tracks everything, knows their numbers. If I said to you, how much business are you getting from realtors? And you said, between 50 and 80%, then I know you're not tracking it, because you would say 53.6 if you actually knew it, right?
Yep.
So the tracking, is super important. And that's what your CRM does. It gives you so much intel into where your business is going. And I love dissecting it for people and say, do you realize, I have a client that, gosh, when I started coaching him in May, he had like 130 some referrals and had only closed 15 loans. That's a conversion ratio problem, right?
That's
but if you say, I don't know what's wrong, I get a lot of referrals. I don't know who I'm getting them from, but I get referrals. I just don't understand it. If you don't have them tracked, I can't help you, right? It's just too hard to have. I mean, other than say, start tracking so I can figure it out. Thankfully, his system tracked it, and he's got he's really techie, so that's really good. But, and so now all we've had to do, it's not that he needs more leads, he needs more conversion. Right. Or we need to go back and figure out who are these relationships and what do they think of you? Do they think you're the lender of last resort? Are you number 1, 2, or 3? And how can we change that? So definitely the CRM is a huge thing. And I really feel sad for so many people. I was just speaking at a mortgage company and I said, be honest, guys, be honest. And I think there were like 57 loan officers or something. I said, be honest. How many of you have reached out to your clients in the last year? You reached out, not they called you and got a refi. You reached out. And 2 hands went up.
Oh, wow.
And that's really sad because I feel like we're preaching this and no one's hearing us, because if you're doing really well this year because rates are low, remember last year it wasn't that way, right? But if you're all of a sudden doing really well this year because rates are low and you're getting a bunch of refis, think about how much money you're leaving on the table because you didn't nurture your database. You could have gotten many, many more of those people. than what you have. So think, and you're proud of yourself, right? And you're walking around going, hey, this is really good. I'm doing really well. You could have been doing even better if you
Yep.
were just nurturing that database and making the quick phone call that says, hey, as your lender, I know your servicer is sending you lots and lots of information about refinancing, but as your lender, I'd like to have a conversation with you to see if now is a good time.
Yep.
Right? And that differentiates you, and that's all you had to do. So
Yep.
yeah, there's all kinds of systems for nurturing and, making sure that you hold them close to you and love on them. It's a FOMO for them. They want to be part of your inner circle.
Well,
You
I
have a
appreciate
circle.
you. Yeah, I mean, just diving into that, because again, it gets back into cultivating your CRM and getting it set up properly is the whole slow down again
Yeah,
to speed up,
it
right?
is. It's
Is
doing what's hard to make it easy.
That's right. And
Right.
one of the things that I built in, I've created a 4-hour workday system, and it's not you're only working 4 hours a day. It's you're being proactive 4 hours a day. And a big
Right.
part of that then is, if you go to a cocktail function the night before and you get a stack of 7 business cards, most people just pile those into a drawer that never come out or they never get into the system. And I mean, I can be candid with, with me going and speaking, I've had the pleasure of speaking on some big stage over the last few months. And it's like you said, let's slow down. Like I had a conversion problem, right? It's like I get all these free downloads or this or that. It's like, let's slow down and really nourish these new download users, these new lists, these new whatever, versus just constantly be in lead generation mode, which is a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Oh yeah, and I do think it's just thinking out of the box. I call it the dot 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 syndrome, or it shouldn't be a syndrome, but for me it's a dot 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 process. Nothing that we do, nothing that that I coach people on is a period. It's not. Well, I talked to the realtor and I got an appointment. Period. I went to the appointment. Period. I did the broker open. Period. Right. It's the dot dot dot. So now what? You have the appointment. Now what? What could you do
Yep.
that's different than somebody else? How about a video? Hey, Bruce, I just want to say thank you so much for taking my call and for booking the appointment with me. I've set aside the time just for you, and I'm so excited to see how I can help your business grow. I promise I won't take more than 30 minutes of time with you, and just excited for the
I love it.
opportunity. I'll see you next week, right? Okay,
Yep.
now dot, dot, dot. What else could you do? Could you send a note that says the same thing? Sure. Right?
Yep.
Then you meet with them. What could you do that's different when you leave? Then, hey, that was really, really a good meeting. I can't wait to work together. And they're saying in their mind, they're going, it was a good meeting. Thanks for the coffee, but my daughter is a lender. You'll never get anything from me because we're just going so damn fast
Yep.
that we didn't stop and say, hey, what are your thoughts about the meeting? Do you think this is good? Do you think this is a good relationship?
Yep.
Right? But what's the dot, dot, dot? That's not the end of that meeting. I met, I spewed on them, and now they should give me business.
Right.
No. What's next?
Yep.
What could you book there? Hey, do you want to book another one while we're here? Let's book another time to get together and let's talk about that one thing. Right? What could you do now? Could you send another video? Could you send a book? Could you, invite them to network with you? Could you give them an example of how you manage mortgages for clients by managing their mortgage?
I love it. I mean, there's so
Right?
many, so if we go all the way back to the start of the podcast, I said, I want to give our users tangible things they can go do. I mean, you're giving me tangible things that I can go do. So I know if I can go do it, then our viewership, our
Yeah.
audience can go do it. So I really do appreciate you sharing your wealth of knowledge. And I mean, just to add to your dot, 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 I've read this somewhere, 5% of LOs are proactive. Only 5%. That's very telling. And I think that gets back to your point of the whole slow down to speed up. How can we be intentional with our new client onboarding? How can we be intentional with going into meetings? How can we be intentional with using and leveraging our CRM the way that it's supposed to be? So I mean, you've given our audience a lot to think about. Anything that you want to add as we shut it down for today?
No, I think I could add a gazillion things, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we could,
I know
this
you
is
can.
kind of a coach's corner, right? Right? I mean, we could add a gazillion things for people to do. I think the key is, I'm going to get back to the 5th C is, the best producers in any category have coaches.
Mm-hmm.
My own Les Brown, right? I say my own, right? My Les Brown has a coach. Tony Robbins has a coach. His coach happens to be one of my coaches for something else. And because he'll text while we're being coached and he's like, I got to take Tony. I go, what? Come on. Okay, I get it. He's Tony, right? But the best people have coaches. So I would consider doing coaching. That would be the
Yep.
biggest thing, is you've got to have someone who holds you accountable. Your friend in the cubby next door to, the cubicle next to you, or, that type of thing, they are not going to coach you. They're not going to help you. The person who has been assigned to you, who's the top producer, doesn't have time. So
Yep.
you need to really consider getting coaching to help you get, on track. It's like when you're driving down the road and those rumble strips hit, the brrr down the road. What coaches do is we help you stay on the road. So when those rumble strips, we don't even allow the rumble strips to happen if we
Yep.
can. But if you don't have someone, you're going to drift off and get in an accident, right?
That's
So
exactly
there's a thousand things. Yeah, a thousand things that we could say about it. But and I would just, again, slow down so you can speed up instead of speeding up to slow down every single month. Let's get you to the point where you can, take a little breath and then watch out. Here you come.
Perfect. So if our friends do want to learn more about you or coaching, what's the best way for them to either reach out or find you?
Well, thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
You can go to jenduplessis.com, and I know you have the link in the podcast, so that's fine. You can go there. You could also text the word strategy to 66866 and schedule a strategy session, and we can just have a conversation about where you want to go, where you are now, and what's preventing you from getting there.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Jen. Obviously I have two very basic beliefs in life, and I know you share these beliefs. Number one is that trained people will always outperform untrained people. And my second belief is that everybody needs a coach in life. And so thank you for being a coach to our audience over these past 30 plus minutes. I appreciate it so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.